Hello there. This is Heirs to the Kingdom channel. In today's lesson, we're in Isaiah chapter 14. Hope everybody's having a good day today. If you are new to this is a Bible study channel where I go through the Bible in order. I read from the King James Bible. So I'm doing a in-depth Bible study for myself, and I'm doing a channel at the same time sharing what I've learned. So I'm sharing the gospel, sharing what I've learned, and doing a study all at the same time. I've always said it before, I don't know anybody that knows everything about the Bible. It's every time I read it, I learn something new. But the one thing I haven't really done is done an in-depth study of it. So that's what God put on my heart to do, is record it and post it, share it with people. So that's what I'm doing. Go ahead and get started in here. So this is attached to the lesson we had last night with chapter 13. But I said it does kind of start a different section. Because, first at the end was talking about the devastation. At the end of 13 was the devastation and destruction of Babylon and that world power at the time. And so here we're starting off in verse 1. I'll just go ahead and start reading into it because it starts being self-explanatory. Once you see that this is now for the Israelites that have survived everything and are now coming back to their land. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Now, of course, if we remember, Jacob is the one that was renamed Israel. Verse 2. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over the oppressors. Now, a lot of people have this weird belief that if you were being taken as a possession of a servant, that means that you're being oppressed, and that's not so. They were not allowed to treat their servants badly. They could eventually be work for themselves to the point that they're free and go do their own thing. This is why they had the awl through the ear. And, so they wore an earring indicating that they were a servant. They belonged to somebody. But that earring can be removed, and then it will heal, showing that they're, no longer a captive servant. But they were treated, as long as they did their job, they were treated with, great respect. It's kind of like if you've never seen the movie Gladiator, the manservant that served Maximus after battle and stuff, that was a captive servant. And he did it with, honor and, even joy. He was happy to serve, happy to have a master like that, because he was treated well. He was a personal servant to Maximus. But, the oppressor's part, though, it's, these people were just, they did have the Israelites as slaves in Babylon and did treat them badly. But they're going to be shown as they're now being ruled over, they're going to be shown differently of how it is to properly be done by godly people. Let's continue on verse 3. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest, and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Kind of like, you ever seen Return of the Jedi, the remake, when it went through all the worlds and everybody was partying once the evil emperor was destroyed. Kind of like the same feelings as, yay, we have freedom from, It's nothing wrong with having, a powerful, a world powerful enough to have, great rule over most of the earth. But it's whenever you do it with evilness, that's what really makes it bad. I mean, mankind has proved that if they are left to their own vices, that they will destroy each other. This is why, if God is your king and you live as such for your nation, then you'll always prosper. But as you can see, even with America, most of the nation, once given a comfortable life, they walk away from the one that gave them that comfortable life. Say, I don't need you now, I got what I wanted. It's kind of like how this feminist movement has with these women today. They'll find a guy that makes good money and this, that, and the other, and they'll marry them, have children with them and everything else, and then wait for that certain perfect time moment to divorce him, then take the nice house, take the kids, get alimony, get child support, take the cars, take his retirement pension, 401k, and all this other stuff. It's, they came into something that's supposed to be a lifelong commitment with evil intent, knowing that they were deceiving and manipulative. That is human nature, without God being a ruler, is, to live for yourself and not for each other. Anyways, let's continue on verse 8. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they that speak and say unto thee, Art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave. Well, we know this word called being pompous. Being, normally that means that you have a lot of possessions thinking you're better than other people type. That's what it's mean. The pomp is those possessions, type, fancy or whatever. You get the idea of fancy possessions of whatever, of royalty type stuff. All that stuff's been brought down to nothing. It ain't that it was buried with him. It's just it's been, to go to the grave means it's dead and useless. That's what it is. All that stuff they had is now, it's useless. It's gone. And the noise of thy viols, well, that's an instrument, a musical instrument. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. Now, of course, that is being in the grave, part of being decomposing. Verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Pretty much God here's talking about Babylon was given this great, the ruler of Babylon was given this great honor of being able to do something good. Instead, he did such evil with it. That's the same thing as, you've been lifted up, all this high and mighty stuff, and now you're being cast down like Satan, the serpent. They said, they've been getting something great, and they did such evil with it. Same thing as, Lucifer or Satan. Verse 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Pretty much, this person's been brought down to nothing. And they thought they were all that, and they did such, they took over nations so easily and stuff, and they've been brought down to nothing. This is to remind us also what Jesus teaches us about staying humble, being humble, not trying to live a life like this because it is of worldliness, and it gets you nowhere except corrupt. So keep a simple, humble life. It's kind of hard in today's world because you feel the need to impress so many people, especially if you're a man seeking a wife. You got to be all impressive, and that's the reason why, you don't do such things. And if, a woman makes fun of you for it, you just automatically know, well, thanks for the red flag. Dodged a bullet there. I spent a lot of my life trying to impress other people because I was raised to not feel that I was good enough by myself. And so you don't want to do that to your children because they end up, chasing other people's approval most of their life, and instead of making themselves just good at who they are. And you don't want to do that. The only approval you should be seeking is the Lord's. And most, the Lord's and yourself. And as long as you're living godly and you approve of yourself, that's pretty much all you need to do. Now, if you're trying to get a promotion at work or this, that, and the other, and you got to work harder, blah, 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 whatever, that's totally different in that scenario because that's work related. But as long as it doesn't take you away from the Lord in that job, you get the idea there. Let's continue on verse 17. That made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land, and slain thy people, the seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Yeah, so that's pretty much God saying that, you're not even going to get a burial place to be remembered at, because you're not worthy of remembering. No one should remember you. Verse 21. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities. Now this is something that was done in Old Testament times that is no longer allowed in New Testament times. But it was kind of common practice. The same thing as if another lion came and took over a pride, he would normally kill the cubs. That way only his children were there, not the last, ruler's children. So people kind of did the same things. I don't know if they actually slaughtered them, took their lives, but normally they would be removed, and, not to make sure they don't come back into power. Because, monkey see, monkey do is the same. The children follow the footsteps of the parents. And it's just a fact. How you live around your kids is how your kids are going to act. So this is why we're always to live as if, Christ is right there beside us looking at us. That's why that saying became so popular. What would Jesus do? Because that's how we're supposed to live. But let's continue on 22. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and the remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. Now the bittern is it's kind of like talking about I think a type of bird that's in swamplands and stuff. Like, could be like a certain type of owl or something. Some other things I've read says, something about an owl in the swamplands area. Is what it's talking about. Pretty much you'll be the owner of worthless stuff. Stuff that's going to be more of a burden to you than a help. Verse 24. The Lord of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand. Now, of course, whatever God makes for a purpose of something, that's what it is to be used for. Like nature has, everything in nature has its purpose. Trees have their purpose. Food has its purpose. But also, people are supposed to have their purpose. And a lot of times, we don't fulfill that anymore. But God normally gives us a long time to try to get back on the right path with Him. And a lot of times, the people just get further and further away because they choose not to listen to the prophets or the religious people coming up saying, hey, we're off track. We need to do a course correction. Let's continue on, 25. That I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him underfoot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. Of course, the Assyrian was, I think, remember correctly, the leader of Babylon. And, they're the ones that enslaved so many people. So removing their burden and all their stuff, off of everybody. Verse 26. This is the purpose that is proposed upon the whole earth. This is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. For the Lord of hosts hath purposed, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? In the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. Rejoice not thou, who Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. So cockatrice is another viper, venomous viper. And the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety. And I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. Howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina art dissolved. For there shall come from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. What shall one then answer the messengers of the nations? That the Lord hath founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in it. And that's the end of the lesson. So, I'm not going to, linger here too long. I did have church tonight. Come back. I couldn't get my stuff on my computer to work correctly, so I ended up having to reload. Had to end up eventually just rebooting the system, but yeah, so I still haven't even made supper tonight. But I've been put backwards a little bit, and it's here in Tennessee time in Central. It's a little after 9. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and end the lesson here. So like I always end the lesson, remember to pray. If you're new to this and you did stay through the whole thing, I do recommend starting off at Genesis chapter 1 and getting caught up if you don't know the Bible all that well. Probably a bunch of words that you didn't understand and that I've already covered before. And I tend to forget once I cover it, I tend to forget to, talk about them more. I try to make sure that I do. But for one, it helps me remember, because with my dyslexia, it's best for me to say stuff out loud. I retain it more instead of just, read it silently or say it silently in my head. I tend to forget it. But if I say it out loud, I tend to retain it better. I don't know why, but that's the way my dyslexia is going to let me learn. And I just said that word wrong too, so proving my point about it. But yeah, so we got to remember to pray. America's under new management right now. We got to see how it goes. They're supposed to be representatives, but they act like leaders. They think they're leaders. They try to rule us like leaders, but they tend to forget in America we're a republic and they're supposed to be ruled by us. So we have to see if we can ever get this, system back on the correct path that it's supposed to be on. Now, hopefully other nations will start making their own lands republics instead of, oligarchs or dictatorships that's what a democracy is. You do have an election system, but you elect leaders. In a republic, you elect representatives. And so we can get the world back under some type of republic completely all over the place. That would be a lot better. But as America has shown the world, even though we have a constitution, we still have a government that disregards it. And the people were trying to do it peacefully to get it back, in order. But sad to say, like I said before, when you leave people to their own vices, they destroy each other. And sometimes you got to take your freedom back with force. And that's just the way it is. So we got to pray that we don't have to do such things. We got to pray for the lost to be found. You know, it's a long shot with a lot of people, but it's worth a try. Then we got to share the gospel and spread it. That helps people a lot as well. But until next time, God bless, good night, and goodbye.